everyone. Today is April the 24th, 2020. Thanks again for coming back to Lisa channel or the Hypnic Paris channel. As described in the previous videos that we talked about, today we start the first video trying to use English as an effort to present to Americans about the impacts of communism on the world. And please excuse, even though my English is not perfect, but I will try my best. So what is the topic of this live stream? It is purpose to introduce the series of live stream that to inform Americans on the negative impacts of communism on the world, particular when it comes to human rights violations. And the main topic for today is the Uyghurs. This live stream will have two main purposes. In particular, we'll be discussing the government's history of human rights violations and how, if left unchecked, China can potentially become the international community's sovereignty authority. There are three different articles that would nullify these possibilities. So we will have different sessions. We'll focus on different topics surrounding this matter. This being said, today we will be looking at the human rights violations against China, the Uyghurs. So therefore today, I would like to introduce with you the two students, two university students, and that is Steve Brandon and Sunny Maria. They will be with us today on this topic. So thank you. So first of all, hi, Steve Brandon.
Hi. So hello to everyone watching. My name is Steve Brandon, and currently I'm a third-year university student at the University of Canberra, which is based in Australia. And I'm studying political science there, and that's why I want to involve myself with what we're doing right now, because it is important and it is relevant, and this is exactly what my field tackles and is about.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you, Steve. And it's nice. And how do you do over there with the pandemic CCP virus?
Yeah. So here in Canberra, it's not as bad as it is in different places. I know, compared to New York, to the States, to China, to Italy, definitely nowhere near as bad as those areas. And the government has been taking a lot of the measures necessary in order to keep the community safe, to keep everyone responsible. Self-isolating ourselves for a certain period of time. So right now we are still self-isolating. Public gatherings have been suspended until around July. So still quite a long time, but wow. We're trying to keep safe, make sure that we lessen the curve of coronavirus as much as we can.
Wow, same here, same here. So thanks for joining us. And hi, Sunny Maria, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you for joining us. Would you mind to introduce a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Sunny Maria, and I'm currently studying at the University of British Columbia in Canada, and I'm in my third year of engineering.
Wow, nice. Thank you. So my name is Lisa Nguyen, and even though the names on the Zoom is not the same, but this was just my writings nickname. So anyway, today we will continue to discuss about how is the situation of the Uyghurs in China. So Steve, well, what do you think Have you ever, study or read articles or talk about the situation of the Uyghurs related to the human rights violations of China?
Right. Yeah. So in my time as a university student, there have definitely been a lot of articles that I've read concerning human rights violations of China, in particular towards the Uyghurs, and it's honestly very distressing to hear about. Just the fact that we have to be mindful that it's not the Chinese people in general, but the Communist Party of China that is responsible for these actions against the Uyghurs. And to discuss it a bit, I just wanted to kind of run down like a brief history, very, very brief history of China's Communist Party and how they've impacted the Uyghurs. And I guess the Uyghurs in particular for now, but how they've impacted so many other ethnicities and even their own, Han Chinese. So yeah, essentially, communism began to take root in China once it was formally recognized as a political party back in 1921. And this party is known and is recognized now as it was back then. So basically, what I'm trying to say is the name has not changed. They are still known and called the Communist Party of China. And while throughout the recorded history, human rights violations have only started a decade after their inception, they have continuously done many underhanded things that have robbed the affected people of their basic human rights. In this particular occasion, of course, we're talking about the Uyghurs, right? And these people have been discriminated upon. They have been rejected the right to life, freedom, safety, and religious expression. And that is very clear and evident when you look at these educational camps that they are being brought into. So they have been honestly enslaved, in sweatshops and this political camp that is trying to brainwash them to think in a certain way and to live as a culture that they do not identify with, and if they don't comply, if they try to resist, they are tortured. Many are tortured, many are killed, and we don't hear about these tragedies in the international community because China censors them. China is trying to keep this information away from us, and if they do release a number of deaths or a number of people imprisoned, they drastically lower the number so
Wow.
that we don't see them for what they really are,
Wow.
and honestly, like the list goes on. The list of violations that they've done onto these Uyghurs are immense. Certain minorities are not even warranted the same due process under a court of law because of their quote unquote inferiority. Because they are not Chinese, they are seen as more inferior, and
Wow.
the people have been robbed and stripped of their rights. And this is clearly seen in the situation of the Uyghurs, which again will be our main point of discussion today.
Wow. Well, what do you think of that, Sunny?
Yeah, I think it's very terrible, and it's sad that we don't get to hear more about it here.
Yeah, that's why we try to do these videos to talk about this so that people become more aware of how communists affecting peoples, and it's spreading. It's coming to the North America and coming to Australia and all over the places as well. So why are they being detained?
Hmm.
Oh, so according to Chinese officials, the Uyghurs are actually not being detained. They're simply entering into vocational training centers. And they're saying that these training centers do not infringe on any of their basic rights, especially their religious rights. But based on the letters from public officials, camp security members are actually never allowed to escape or wander around or have their freedom. They're being increased in discipline and punishment of behavioral violations. They're promoting repentance and confession of crimes, even crimes that they did not do. And they're being made remedial Mandarin studies the top priority, basically meaning that they're indoctrinating them with communist beliefs and overtaking their language, even not giving them a chance to have any sort of their own culture at all. This encourages the students to truly transform into Han Chinese rather than what they are meant to be and into their own religion as they should have grown up to be. Not only that, but they're constantly under surveillance, and they don't have any privacy, basically. Like, they're always in the public eye of the Chinese officials and government. So all of these are the conditions that simply are unacceptable of these vocational training centers. And most of the people in the camps have never been charged with crimes and have no legal avenues to challenge their detentions. The detainees seem to have been targeted for a variety of reasons, according to media reports, including traveling to or contacting people from
Wow.
any of the 26 countries that China considers sensitive, such as Turkey and Afghanistan. They're not allowed to attend their own services or at their mosque. They're not allowed to send text or anything containing Quran verses, basically not being able to share their religion. And often their only crime is actually practicing their religion. So human rights groups say that these Uyghurs have been labeled as extremists basically just for practicing their religion, which is not fair or right.
Wow. Wow, that's what we are being worrying about too, as well as what happening in Vietnam right now. So just for you to know, people are trying to do the Han Chinese for us as well. They try to promote communists, but Chinese communists and so forth. So they try to change our languages, erase our history, and we also have a lot of video surveillance. Like a camera is everywhere right now. As far as we understand, it's about 1.5 millions of cameras in Vietnam to watch over 94 millions people. So it's averagely about one camera per 7 people. So so that's how they control us as well, and they collect all the database of everyone so that they can watch us and monitor us. And if someone they think that might be in suspect, they put a camera right in front of their house and watch them constantly, 24 hours a day. Yeah. Yeah. So
Lisa, could I add on to
sure.
that?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight something that Sunny said regarding, why these Uyghurs are being detained. And she emphasized, I think, if I remember correctly, that the security members, the security members of the camp, they are never to allow escapes. Something about increasing discipline and punishment. Talking about making Mandarin a priority for everyone to learn. And what really stuck out to me was encouraging these ethnic Muslims to transform into Han Chinese, transform into people that they are not. And, if we look at history, we see this all the time, and we have condemned these actions so many times. We've seen this played out by Adolf Hitler. We've seen this played out by the American governments against the Native Americans, putting these people into educational camps to transform them into cultural people who they are not. We've seen this with the Japanese towards the Koreans, the British towards the Indians, and each and every single time we have condemned these actions. Yet when it comes to the Chinese, the international community is so silent. They're afraid to speak out against the Chinese government because they can't do anything.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that become very hard. It's almost become impossible for them to fight against such a, such a hard and, no morality, no respect, no human rights, and everything is hidden. All the news are covered up. Therefore, it's like you are being blocked into inside everything.
Right.
Yeah. So why are there intentions between China and the Uyghur?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, based on my studies of the Uyghur situation, there are several things that are factored in. Okay, first things first. Um, the main thing I would say that causes this tension between the Uyghurs and the Han Chinese is due to the fact that these Uyghurs in general, they do not consider themselves Chinese at all. While they are in China, uh, in the geographic location of China, their culture is nothing, like the Han Chinese of the East. You know, they have a completely different culture, completely different tradition, completely different religion, um, and they are more connected towards the Middle Eastern countries. If we look at the map of China, and we look at where the Uyghurs live, so in the Xinjiang um, district of China, they are right next to Pakistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. Um, and they identify more with these countries than they do with their supposed own country. And this causes such a tension between the Chinese government and them, because this means that they seek independence from China. And of course, as this Chinese government, you don't want to see a portion of your population just drift away, especially because um, in Xinjiang, that is their supposed 1/8 country. And oh, yeah, so Xinjiang is basically 1/8 of China's landmass, and they focus so much on agriculture, and they have a lot of raw resources that have not been harvested yet, because they're so far out from the developed Eastern China. And the Chinese come to these districts, and they look for these resources. They look for the natural resources. They look for the human resources. All of these things to help bolster up their economy. You know,
Wow.
and if these Uyghurs leave, then that's a lot of wasted profit for them. You know, um, and just like Sunny said earlier, their mere practice of religion is seen as a threat to the Chinese, because of course in China you look at them and you see that who do they glorify, who do they praise, who
Mm.
is up on the Chinese pedestal. It's these communist leaders who have for so long taken control over the country, taken control over the lives of millions and millions of people.
Wow.
But the Uyghurs cannot identify that with that. They have their own god. They cannot look towards a man and
Hmm.
acknowledge that he is the most important being.
Hmm.
So their practice and their beliefs is a threat to China's strength, and
Wow.
that is why China has continuously oppressed many religious groups. They have repressed the Catholics. They have repressed of course, the Muslims. Judaism does not even exist in China. Um, Buddhism has been fading away.
Wow. Yeah. I know the story. I know there was not a few months ago. What they discovered is very scary. After they put in millions of people into the one called educational camp, the
Mhm.
educational camp is in brackets because it's as a prison.
Right.
So they put mostly other men into those educational camp, and at their house, at their home, they try to eliminate people from, practicing their religions and everything, and they use that as an excuse. So they send Chinese police officers come to their house. So every family will have at least one or two Chinese police officers stay in their house 6 days a week and participate in all the family activities. So they interact with their children, training and teaching their children the communist ideas and so forth. And they even sleep with their wife. They make the wife to sleep with those officers, and it become a huge mess. So the people who was in the refugee camp, or the educational camp, which actually is a prisoner camp, was even being brainwashed and being affected, and their wife at home was forced to sleep with someone else, which is entirely, to me, is a true, like a really cruel thing that you cannot imagine that would happen in the North America world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean,
Yeah. So during this coronavirus, the CCP, or the pandemic season, how do you think? How did the China treat the Uyghurs?
So I mean, the best way to describe the Chinese treatment of the Uyghurs, I mean, during this time where everyone is panicking, you have all these countries shutting down. A lot of factories have closed down. A lot of people have just stayed at home. Governments don't want to see people out on the streets, or they don't want to see people gathered in these factories working. Yet here in China, I mean, it's extremely inhumane. China has been requiring these Uyghurs to come into their manufacturing houses at Hunan, Jiangsu, Jiangxi, Zhejiang, and they've been working continuously throughout the pandemic because China wants to maintain that economic stronghold that it has on the world right now. If you look at the world, everyone is dependent on China, but China does not need to rely on anyone. They have these countless human resources that they can turn to and force to work. And they don't even see the Uyghurs as being completely human, They are seen as like third-class citizens. And because they are third-class citizens, they feel like they can do whatever with them. You could even say that they're basically Chinese slaves, and yeah, I mean, like here in my notes, like I see like China has been accused of heightened abuse of human rights towards the Uyghurs by the international community, by the UN, in its Xinjiang province, and has also increased forced organ harvesting of the minority Muslim community to save the lives of coronavirus infected Han
Wow.
Chinese. So you see that's exactly what I'm saying. They're seen as third-class citizens that only work to serve the Han Chinese. You know, their lives do not matter. If a
Wow.
Han Chinese
So sad.
man needs a liver, a new lung, if they kill a Muslim and they give him the lung or the liver that Muslim man had.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And according to reports, China has sent thousands of these Uyghurs, like as I mentioned earlier, to its manufacturing powerhouses like Hunan, Jiangsu, Jiangxi, and Zhejiang, and to keep its factories running post the evacuation of the regular workers following the imposition of the lockdown that has happened in Wuhan. So
Wow.
that basically means all of Wuhan is closed down. You know that western part of China is closed down, but yet here are these Uyghurs coming from the westernmost part of China. Very close to Wuhan, China, and they're being made to work continuously. And reports have also exposed how the communist government of China has used more than 1.5 million Uyghurs currently detained in re-education camps or mass detention centers to be used as killed on demand. Again, like for kill on demand. So if any Han Chinese needs an organ, there's the demand. You kill the Uyghur, you take him, and
Oh
you
my
give the
goodness.
Chinese what he needs.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a clear example of economic exploitation, social discrimination, and just a forceful destruction of religious ethos and traditional social structures.
Wow. It's unbelievable.
It's
It's beyond like treating people like even worse than an animal.
right, and you see these in movies. You see like situations like this in a movie, and you would never believe that this
Um,
could ever happen, because you
uh,
can't even imagine a human being so heartless and not having that sense of empathy or compassion for another human being. Yet here we are with the Chinese Communist government doing all these things to the Uyghurs.
wow. Have you ever talked about this situation to other people, such as people in North America? And
Right.
yeah, have you ever talked to them and how do they respond to it?
So the thing is, I mean, like living in Australia, I'm like the eastern um part of the world, and even here, not a lot of people know what's happening about China, or they don't know why it's so important to know about the Uyghurs, to know about the Tibetans, to know about the Vietnamese, to know about the Philippines, because it doesn't affect them, and because it doesn't affect them, they don't see any reason to care, and they look at China as a good thing. Where do we get all our products? Where do we get all our clothes? How are we being sustained economically? Who is providing for us? It's China, right? China
Yeah.
is there for everything, and we see all these things that China is making and sending over to us, and we're so happy, and we think, oh my gosh, look at these clothes, they're so cheap, they're so affordable.
Mm-hmm.
What a blessing for me to be able to buy these clothes at such a cheap price. But then they don't stop, and they don't think, okay, where are these clothes coming from? Why are they so cheap? It doesn't make sense why they're so cheap. And if you look into it, you see these sweatshops for these little kids, or for these women in China, who are being forced to work 18 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
You have like these 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old children working in these sweatshops 18 hours a day. And if they don't work, who gets punished? Their parents. Their parents get killed, or maybe one of their siblings get killed. And there's so much fear that is being circulated, and that fear generates obedience within the Chinese. I mean, and think about it, this thing happening with the kids in the sweatshops, these are the Han Chinese. These are the first class citizens of the country, and
Mm-hmm.
even they are being treated like they are just expendable.
Yeah.
I'm so worried when I heard about this, also because it will be happen to my own country, to Vietnam, that we are changing like the cruelties and everything's what happening right now to the Uyghurs, that also happened to Tibetans as far as I know, and it happened in Vietnam in lots of areas as well. For example, in the factories, that people are being locked. uh, the washroom door is locked, only open at certain area. People come to work late for 5 minutes, being punished, being beat, and being knee down, make them knee down, and then also they even deduct their salary for a few hours and so forth for just a 5 minute late, and nobody there to protect them, and they're not allowed to use the washroom during this time, and all kind of thing violations that happen in the same in Vietnam as well. um,
Hmm.
right now we also have problems such as uh, they saying they buying the baby, the fetus, what do you say, the
Feet.
fetus, right? The
Feet.
fetus, the fetus. For example, a few days ago, I heard a story that there was a marriage couple. The wife was pregnant for 8 months, so she went crossing the border to sell the baby. She was told that to go to the border and sell the baby for about a few hundred dollars and so forth. And because they were so poor, they don't have any other means, so they're selling their babies. And then after that, the husband heard the story that the wife was being in an accident, and he never see her again. But it happened to a lot of people like that. And there was even a situation where um, uh, later on they figured out that the wife was killed as well. So um, it happens too much and too many people, even to the brides. So people, there was an advertisement in China where it said, the advertisement said that you can buy a virgin bride in Vietnam for $6,000, and you can do whatever you want to it. And no matter what, how old you are, like you can be between whatever to 60 years old, and you can buy a bride. And when after within 1 year you're not satisfied, you can exchange for different ones. So they treat people like more like a
Object.
things, yeah, like animals or something like that. It's very, very bad, and it's open, it's public, it become normal. That's what I look at it, and I find it unacceptable. It
That
it's
is
something that this side of the world should know about. The live stream has been quite a bit long, and I think the today is just an introductions, and I really appreciate you two for joining us today.
it's
To
our
talk,
pleasure. Pleasure.
yeah, to talk about the cruelties that how China treats their people, and it's also an opportunities for us to present to you about the Vietnams. So as you have seen or heard so much the evil things by the communists in China, and similar in Vietnam. Um, countless people have been suffering and continue to suffer the injustice and persecutions under their dictatorship. Um, in our own experience as Vietnamese, uh, we 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 had come to a conclusion that as long as communists exist, the suffering of many people will continue and get worse each day. Therefore, we are working on a solution that we want to propose to the world, that to resolve the South China Sea problem, as well as the independence for the Vietnamese people to be free to vote for their own leadership and freedom from communists. That's what I will present it in the in the coming series of this live stream. Therefore, I would like to uh, conclude, to end the live stream as of now. But before we end, you two, if you don't mind, you can give us a few explanations, or a few describe of your feelings about as North America, the North America people, what you feel or what you think, what we can do for the Uyghurs.
Yeah, well, actually, like on that note, in one of the articles I was reading about the Uyghurs, I was reading from this one journalist who actually traveled to China, and this was because he's actually a Canadian. He's an Albanian Canadian historian, and he traveled to China because he wanted to learn more about everything that the world was saying, because a lot of people were accusing China and communist countries of covering up their wrongdoings and everything. And he didn't really believe this, so he decided to travel to China and study specifically on the Uyghurs. So he went on this journalist tour to Xinjiang, where there were a lot of Uyghurs concentration camps, and he was actually stunned. Like, he could not believe what he saw. So he saw there that the Uyghurs were banned from praying, and they were not allowed to speak their original language. And if they had shown any sign of this, like if they were showing any of their religion or speaking their original language, their Turkish like Uyghur language, they would be thrown into these concentration camps. And because of this, he was completely shocked. And originally, like upon arriving in China, he thought that it would just be like the original Islamophobic treatment. Like they would be scared of the Islams, they would hate on the Islams, but they wouldn't do anything to stop it. And he was absolutely shocked because he saw that this was an organized repression instead. Um, and he was able to speak to some of the Uyghurs in the concentration camps. And a lot of them actually sadly said that they no longer prayed or even considered themselves followers of Islam because they had been forced under such conditions. And they were not allowed to study the Quran. It was completely banned. And what was even more surprising was that all of the journalists that he traveled with did not mention or write anything about the China's treatment of the Uyghurs. And this was completely stunning to him because he saw very clearly, like he writes, that the Chinese authorities were trying to sell a fake story to the world. But upon visiting, he could see through it. So it was very insane for him.
Wow. Wow. It's very cool. It's shocking. It's unbelievable. So mm, go ahead, Steve. Would you want to describe your feeling about how or what you think this side of the world can do to stop the communist China?
Mhm. I mean, for me personally, I mean, just hearing what Sunny had just finished saying, what's clear to me, I mean, is that these people don't have a voice, you know? They have no one to stand up for them. They have no one to defend them, to let the world know about, what is going on. China is going to completely be silent. We know that. They would never want information like this to get out. Um, and there are only a handful of reporters or news stations who will make a big deal out of this, you know, and that is what it is. This is a big deal, you know.
Yeah.
If we do not do anything about this, maybe 10 years down the road, there will be no more Uyghurs in China. This is ethnic cleansing, and we have a responsibility to these people as individuals who are able and capable to inform the world, about what is really happening in this part of the world. You know, we have a responsibility to let them know about the atrocities that the communist government of China are doing to these individuals, and you know even just doing something as simple as this, as a live streaming video chat amongst each other. This is already doing far more than millions of people will even consider doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing I would encourage is to become more informed, because one of the things that Olsi, the journalist I was talking about earlier, was saying is that he couldn't believe he was so naive. And that's like a problem with a lot of the world today. Like, we just assume and we live in our bubble and we don't go further. Like, we don't seek to, how can we make other people's lives better? What is our duty and our obligation to the world? Like, what can we do with this life? So that's one thing for sure to be
I agree.
encouraged.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I totally agree. So thank you so much for joining us with the live stream tonight. And we really appreciate your time. And we hope that we have a chance to do more English series for people to know about
Right.
how communists treat peoples in their own
Mm-hmm.
country.
Mm-hmm.
And We hope to see you again on Wednesday. And we also would like to let you know that we also have a petition that we um, want to apply the public law PL 93559, asking for an international conference on the Paris Conference on Vietnam. Um, that is the International Conference on Vietnam that they have signed back in March 2nd of 1993. So that on the seventh law that the sections 7 on the Article 7, it said that there was a need to have a conference to resolve the violations of the uh, peace agreement, the Paris Peace Agreement signed on January 27, 1973. So we will talk more about that in the coming series. And our website is hiplinkparis.com, as you see on the screen. And our telephone number is 210-3087, and email address hd.paris1973@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us. And finally, I just want to inform everybody about a former UN US ambassador. Her name is Nikki Haley. She's well known to many people that she now promotes the petition for Stop Communist China. As you see on the screen, that there has been like many thousands of people have signed, and this petition is just within 2 days. It's already have 44,901 petitions out of 100,000 signatures goal. We are the same. We also need just 100,000 signatures, and we hope that you guys can join us and promote this our petition as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone for watching. We hope that you spend some time to subscribe for us on the YouTube channel Hiệp Paris, as you see. And please share this video so that more people can join with us in an effort to make the world aware about how communists affecting people, especially during the time for the pandemic. Thank you so much once again for Steve Brannan and Sunny Maria. Have a great evening or the day. Have a great day at your time. Thank you so much, and bye for now.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.